Hey everybody, how's it going? Christian from Treasure Town here. Today we're going to be discussing 20 different collections that people have. These are all types of things that people collect. All of them have some dedicated fan bases. Obviously, one of them is coin collecting. That's kind of the main focus on my channel, but there's a lot of different things. And as somebody who works in a coin shop, I've seen some of these items come in along with coin collections. So that's kind of one way that I've learned a lot about it. Another is just doing some research and being personally involved in a few of the other hobbies. So let's get into it. I did not specifically order them, but it's going to be 20 different ones. We're going to go to a PowerPoint presentation so I can kind of show you some photos of what I'm talking about and that sort of thing. And here's our first one, which is action figures. This one's not something I know too much about. Might be fun to actually make a video on it, and I'm going to say that probably about a lot of this stuff. But I definitely remember on my own playing with some Star Wars action figures that weren't super valuable, but there's definitely a large collector community. And I think that the theme here is a lot of this is like nostalgic things that you grew up with, and once you have more money you can spend a lot of money to purchase kind of what you wanted when you were a kid, and we'll see that with a lot of these types of things. Next up is antique furniture, vases, or decorative items. This time I can say a little bit about it. This vase was actually found, I believe, in somebody's attic. They didn't really like it that much. They put it up for auction and it brought $19 million from a Chinese bidder. I want to say it was the Qianlong period. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation, but it's like the finest example of art from that period. Probably somebody in China wanted to preserve their family's history. Maybe they have some heritage links to, the people that were making this or at the top of society when it was being made, and things will fetch astronomical prices. I feel like I've seen vases, this is similar to that. Furniture on the side, there's tons of valuable furniture, whether it's owned by somebody or just really fine craftsmanship from a time when the way they made furniture was different, that sort of thing. After that, we have art. I don't want to spend too much on this one just because a lot of people know about it, but I'm pretty sure everybody appreciates a beautiful work of art that obviously looks a little bit different for what people consider beautiful, but there's a lot of art collectors out there, and it's another area where the prices can be astronomical compared to some of the other ones, and I definitely have a few kind of niche areas that I just think are cool, and you might want to start collecting those. There's also books. I was looking online, The Tragedy of Macbeth, one of the original or oldest copies. There was like Leonardo da Vinci's notes, I think got purchased for well over 20 million. There was one of the original Book of Mormons for Latter-day Saints, Church of Latter-day Saints, I believe it's called. Somebody purchased that for like 40 million. So books can be interesting because people just pay huge sums of money, especially again when there's that historical significance, and it's been something that's been going around for a long time. Somebody found a copy of the Magna Carta in a scrapbook, and that one just sold for, again, I think well over $10-20 million. So we're talking about some serious money in books. Then we have bottles, which is probably not quite as serious money, but I know a lot of people go bottle digging. I've done it with some friends. I need to make a video the next time I go do it, but there's a lot of bottles that were just thrown out. But again, from a time when the craftsmanship was just different, very beautiful. Now we have lots of plastic, lots of cheap materials. These would be a little bit more expensive, often very customized, embossed with what the product that was in the bottle says. All of that information would actually be in the glass, so they can be displayed around a house, that sort of thing. And different ones are more rare and then more expensive, but there's even conventions. I've never been to one, but I know that they do exist. I got a few from a friend who bottle digs for my background, but next up is coins. That's pretty much what I talk about most of the time, and I should have also included banknotes, numismatics in general. There's tons of specificity, and for those of you who don't interact with my channel much, there's tons of info on that on my channel. Here we've got some very rare US coins, each selling for millions of dollars that where they really weren't supposed to be made. I think the 1913 has like 5 or 6 examples out there. The 1933 had one. Then somebody whose relative had stole them came forward with 10 of them. They were seized from the government, but they would have been worth millions and millions of dollars. Then after that, we've got comic books, which is another kind of place where I don't know too much about it, but I know a lot of people who do. And in this case, I don't know if these comics are even significant like I knew the coins were. There we have a graded comic book, but again, going back to nostalgia, what people were reading when they were a kid, or just very rare items. I don't even know how the market's doing on comic books. I know we'll talk about stamps later. Market has been very down, whereas coins has held pretty steady. After that, though, we've got dolls, toys, cast iron banks. So I've definitely been involved with selling some toy soldiers. Those can be expensive. Again, a lot of detail was often added to them. And the vintage ones are probably more expensive. There's a lot of expensive new ones as well. These cast iron banks, unbelievable. Once in the coin shop that I work at, we had a bunch of these come in, and we ended up selling them for hundreds and hundreds of dollars each. They're basically banks that have a little mechanism. It's like a toy bank, but some mechanism where you push something and then the coins can drop through or something like that. And people just paid a lot for them. They were from the 1880s, that kind of era, and they can be very valuable. And then dolls can date back a lot further than that, but people, again, pay up for it. Next up, we've got gold, silver, or precious metals. This one is an area where I wasn't sure if it's totally collectible, but there's definitely collectability in it. A lot of people like owning the metals themselves, but there's also really rare bars and obviously coins, but I'm talking about just bars. I saw it, when silver was like $15 an ounce, there was a 5-ounce bar that I sold for like $800 just because it was a very rare one. It's an early silver bar. So there's collectability in it. Plus, I think it's also something that's kind of an investment, maybe to a little bit more of a degree than some of the other collectibles in here. And it's something that people take pretty seriously. Moving on, though, next we have jewelry. This one is kind of a crazy market. I've heard, a lot about manipulation, that now they're getting really good artificial ones, but there's definitely collectible jewelry that were worn by significant people like queens or kings or that type of historical thing, or there's also just gemstones that are unbelievable quality. And I don't really know too much about it, but I know that's definitely something that a lot of people collect in a big way. And then after that, we've got kind of one of my favorite ones on this list. I've seen some of these collections kind of casually, but license plates, there's lots of super vintage ones. Some of them are pretty rare. I don't know if the ones in front of me are rare or not. I typed in rare license plates and this is kind of what came up, but there's tons of different stuff. And this can be like a fun way to decorate like a segment of a wall or something. And I'm sure that there's rare license plate collectors that actually know what they're talking about here. I definitely don't. After that, we've got pinball machines, which again, kind of probably brings people back, certainly does for me. And pinball machines apparently have gotten extremely expensive recently, massive price jumps. And I don't exactly know why that is, but they're definitely, again, part of the arcade. People grew up going to arcades, enjoying that, kind of recreating that experience in their home or something like that. A lot of the vintage ones, they're quite tough to get hands on, and if you can actually get one, people seem to really enjoy owning them. After that, we've got political memorabilia, and there's probably lots of stuff in front of me that's just not rare whatsoever, but maybe there is. Not an area I know much about, but I could definitely see how people would enjoy collecting it, whether it's collecting just rare items, kind of blasts from the past, or if it's like collecting all the items kind of issued for a specific president that they really like, something like that. That's just something I think a lot of people enjoy doing. Then I also included posters because that's not always political. Could be a movie poster, could be a propaganda poster, could be, I don't know what. There's tons of posters out there. And again, a lot of this kind of intersects with just decorating rooms like license plates and posters and that sort of thing, also having some historical significance. That's kind of all factors into it. But I think that there's some posters I've heard of, at least, that can be very, very expensive. And it's probably like coins, something where you really want to have good condition posters that kind of are printed well and don't have too much dinged up aspects to them. After that, we have sports cards, which are super, super hot right now. Kind of prices going through the roof. PSA is Professional Sports Authenticator. They do a lot of grading cards for their quality. Here we've got a Zion Williamson in 10, so it's on a scale of 1 to 10. Coins has that from 0 to 70. Should have talked a little bit about that, but the Honus Wagner is a card I grew up hearing about. I don't do tons of sports cards collecting myself, but I definitely appreciate it and did it when I was younger, kind of for fun, casually. And over here, I think this is a very rare sports football card, so I try to get different sports. But again, that probably takes people back to when they, either enjoying collecting themselves as a child or just showcasing history in their hands. That's kind of what that would be about. Then there's also sports memorabilia, which I figured was distinctly different enough to warrant a different category. That could be some rare historic jerseys, often signed things that can be on cards or jerseys. Will make it a lot more valuable, even if it's just a signed football, signed picture, that sort of thing. There's lots of different room for cool sports memorabilia to support your team, support your favorite athletes, that sort of thing. After that, we've got stamps, which I've heard about this one. It's like some reverse, where they printed the helicopter or not the helicopter, the plane upside down. I don't know if the Army official 6-pence stamp is expensive or not, but that was something that really just kind of had the bottom fall out of the market, and outside of probably a few very rare stamps, has really fallen in a way that coins hasn't even seen, and maybe coins is due for that as well. But basically what I'm saying is that it's an example of a hobby that can be in decline. Not all of these are going to be great investments, and you have to know what you're doing when going after it in an investing eye, but it's just kind of a cool thing that a lot of people have collected and showcases, again, a lot of history. After that, we've got trading cards. I know a fair amount. I enjoy playing Magic the Gathering. Definitely wish I owned this card, Black Lotus. There's some very rare ones, but a lot of the value in the cards is actually because they can be used to play, whereas something like Pokemon cards, which I also really enjoyed doing as a kid, and now I own a few kind of pricier ones, not too many, but just to kind of have that throwback from the past. Those are not really because of their skill or ability in actually playing the game, more of just like a nostalgic thing. And then I'm not sure with Yu-Gi-Oh, but that's just another card game that I think there is some value in. There's a lot of different card games out there, but these are kind of the big three that people talk about. Then we've got video games. This is something I really don't know much about, but I think it's super cool because, again, throwbacks, things that bring people back to their childhood. There's a lot of really rare games, especially from the beginning periods of video games when people didn't think to save them. A lot of them have since kind of don't work anymore, but functional ones obviously a lot better. And if it's still in good condition, like looks good, that sort of thing, definitely would be worth more. But anyways, the video game market, a lot of people play a lot of video games. So I think the rare ones definitely will. I know for a fact that they're selling for a lot of money, but it's just, when there's interest in a big thing, often the historic ones or the really high-end ones will kind of carve out a market for themselves and become collectibles. And I think we have a few more, but that might have been the last one. Oh yeah, we've got watches. This might be the last one. So there's luxury watches, like really expensive ones, and I could have thrown in cars here as well, or earlier in this presentation, but there's ones like this that are just super expensive, high craftsmanship, and a market, kind of a signal of wealth. There's also collecting like old watches that are historic. You can buy these often very cheap, especially if they don't work, just kind of as interesting, again, blasts from the past, that sort of thing. So there's definitely different tiers of the market here, whether it's a really nice gold Rolex or Patek Philippe or something like that. There's also, ones that are zero precious metal, don't even work, but just kind of look interesting. So that's another thing to think about. Definitely another area that people collect. I think that brings us to the end, and I tried and it did. So that's our 20th. Hope that you found some cool information out, and I hope that you maybe got inspired to start collecting something new. Let me know if you think there should be anything added to this list. Always interested in hearing what people think. Thanks for watching the video. I'd encourage you to like, comment, and subscribe for more content, and get in touch with me on my website, treasuretownYT.com, Facebook, TreasureTown, Instagram @TreasureTownYT, or Twitter @TreasureTown_YT, and I'll look forward to seeing you on some of my future vids.